Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. The 1921 Morgan dollar versus the 2021 Morgan dollar. Let's explore! Indeed, we are comparing two coins minted 100 years apart. The 1921 Morgan dollar was the last year of this series, first started in 1878 and minted all the way through. And it was in 1921 that there was a big switchover for our dollar coins, as that was the movement from the Morgan to the peace dollar. And that was what led to the commemoration of the new 100-year 2021 Morgan dollar. And they also made a 2021 peace dollar and to commemorate the 1921 peace dollar, which was much more rare. But nonetheless, this video we're looking at the two coins and comparing them in various different ways. And so let's get started by taking a look at the 2021 Morgan dollar, which I'm sure you've seen many of these already out there on YouTube and various different places, photos and the like. And we can see here that it is a lot different than the 1921 version. But as we take a look at it here, you can see it utilizes modern minting technology to give us a lot of the details that we may or may not have seen in 1921. But we're going to take a look at that 1921 in a moment. But let's look at the edges of this. Very sharp edges. In fact, some of these have been known to have what's known as finning, where the metal flows above the collar, and it happens generally in uneven strikes. And that's what the mint is kind of famous for. And this one has slightly uneven strike, where the rim is narrower on one side and thicker on the other side. And so we can sometimes see that. And it's not to say that it hasn't happened in the past, but it's not as likely to happen as much in the past. But there's some sharper details on this, but they are a bit hidden and maybe not as prominent behind the matte finish that is on these coins. And that matte finish is quite apparent on here and is not really as prevalent on the older Morgan dollars. Now, this is obviously a collector piece, so essentially that matte finish is more tied to kind of a burnished look that you see for many of the collector versions of uncirculated coins that the United States Mint does. But nonetheless, you can see the detail and has been preserved for the most part on these modern renditions of the Morgan dollar. And this is obviously the difference is the date, 2021. But otherwise, they preserve it fairly well. I'm sure there's a lot of work that has been done to find the original plaster molds and dies from the original series, and to be able to preserve it as best they can. And I think the Mint has done a good job in that aspect of it, as these essentially commemorate the last year and the last year of the Morgans and the first year of the peace. Now let's take a look at as far as the details of the 1921 Morgan dollar. The 1921 Morgan dollar was intended for circulation. In fact, the final year of this is 1921. It is the first year that they've been minted since 1904. In other words, there's no 1905 through 1920 Morgan dollars. There are no dollar coins minted throughout all of those years. And there's reasons for that, which I won't get into now. But as you can see, this has the original luster. This is a brilliant uncirculated version. But the big difference between this and the Morgan dollar for the 2021 issue is this was intended for circulation, which means that though it never really circulated, it was intended for circulation, which means that it was essentially thrown into bags, hence why you see bag marks on Morgan dollars. Almost every Morgan dollar you will see that's uncirculated are going to have these bag marks on them, and are most notable on on the fields, but they're really more prominent in the cheek and along the various different aspects of the coin itself, the raised elements, the device. And but nonetheless, there it is, 1921, and you can see that the edge has a little bit more rounded feature to it because of the way they minted coins back then. And of course, it was probably more, maybe even on purpose to do that so that it wouldn't cut people, when you go to circulate these things, and so they could stack easier. Whereas the collector versions, they really don't care, and actually it's a big problem. I've complained about it before, but nonetheless, you can see the original details in this uncirculated version from 1921. Very nicely done, but it does tend to have a slightly weaker strike, and you can see when you compare the ear, for instance, and the lobe of the ear is more pronounced on the 2021 version due to its original intention there, to how it was tended to be struck. And I guess getting that ear detail is quite difficult to do with that part of the die. But nonetheless, there it is, and it is quite an interesting difference between these two physically. I would say that the fonts are more flat and sharper on the original 1921 version, and more rounded and softer on the 2021 version. And you can really see that here when you look closely at the font and the serifs of these things. It's a bit softer there, and these are wider and more, I think more attractive as well on this 1921 version. Same thing on the back. In God We Trust. Let's take a look at the back of the 1921 or the 2021. We can see here again a bit flatter on this side, but softer, and that could very well be due to the finish, the frosting or the matte finish to this. But you can see the difference there. Now, one thing you will also note as we look at this, I happen to have Philadelphia examples of both of these, and of course the 2021s and the different privy marked versions of these coins are all minted in Philadelphia. So if we took a look at these closely, we can also see here not only the slightly more pronounced devices on the 2021, in other words, really kind of coming out forth from the design, you can see the colorization, the difference in color between these. And that is because the 1921 version is what's made of what is known as coin silver, and that is 90% silver and 10% copper and other alloys. Whereas the 2021 version, due to a cost-saving measure, are utilized using 999 fine silver, pure silver. And that is the difference. Many people think that we should go back to, for these coins should have been made 90% silver like the originals, although they would still be brighter in color, because this coin, though it is brilliant uncirculated, does have a little bit of patina on it due to its time in being exposed to the air. So it has a slight yellowing feature to it, and that is essentially what small interaction with sulfur that is in the air. Silver reacts to sulfur. But it's probably one of the brightest examples I could find in my collection. But it is very nice to see a brilliant uncirculated version from 1921. In fact, that leads me to my next comparative note on this, and that is the 2021 costs $85 from the United States Mint issue price, and they're now trading for far above that on the secondary market, at least for now. Whereas the 1921 version is you can get it for, well, about $25, maybe $30 in this condition, just depending on where you buy it from. But it's a very common coin, and so therefore it is essentially sold for as a better bullion piece, and is essentially sold as constitutional silver with a slight premium. So there you have it. Now let's take one other physical characteristic. We're going to look at these coins from the edge, and we can compare the reeded edge markings on these. You can see they're relatively identical, save for the 2021 version has a much sharper edge. And I wouldn't necessarily say cleaner, although this example is fairly decent, I must say, which is kind of unusual for the United States Mint these days to have a consistent non-finned edge, but this one has a slight bit of it. But nonetheless, the number of reads are identical, but it does appear to be slightly wider, but it really is not. It's just that the rounded edge of the Morgan of the 1921 makes it appear thinner. But they are indeed here and fascinating. And we're going to actually do one other little test here that I had not thought about until just now. And we're going to actually see if we can weigh these. Let's see here. Let's pull these and see how much each of them weigh. And we're going to do it in grams. And so let's see if we can get this here to take a look at this. The 1921 Morgan, I'm going to put on there, and we can see that it weighs 26.8 grams. You see that there? 26.8 grams is what the 1921 Morgan weighs. The 2021 Morgan dollar weighs 26.9 grams. So you see that it's a different weight there. 26.9 versus 26.8. 26.8 versus 26.9. Negligible difference, but mainly that difference is that silver is slightly more dense than copper, and so my guess is that's probably why that weight difference is there. But nonetheless, there you have it. We have a weight difference between them, slight, but fairly noticeable difference in the physical characteristics of both coins. And so there you have it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. In this comparative study between the Morgan silver dollar from 1921 and the Morgan silver dollar from 2021, 100 years later. Very good. I want to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch this video, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.